the Dark Ages, a period often seen as the dimming of the light of civilization. After the fall of the Roman Empire, Europe found itself fractured, kingdoms and tribes battling for dominance in the vacuum of power. Cities, once illuminated by knowledge, now flickered like candles struggling to stay lit. Trade routes faltered, roads became unsafe, and intellectual pursuits slowed. But beneath the surface, there were those, monks in monasteries, scholars in hidden corners, who preserved the embers of the ancient world, quietly copying manuscripts and keeping the flame of knowledge alive. Like any dark moment in history, it was not without glimmers of hope. It was a time of reflection, a period where people sought meaning in adversity, much like how we today reflect and innovate after great crises. From the arid plains of Central Asia, a silent killer was about to make its way into Europe. The Black Death, carried by fleas on rats, originated in the heart of Asia, likely in the regions surrounding Mongolia. As the Mongol Empire expanded, so did the disease. Along the Silk Road, traders unknowingly brought more than silk and spices. They carried death. The year was 1347. In the city of Kaffa, a Genoese trading outpost on the Black Sea, Mongols laid siege. Desperate and stricken by plague, the Mongols are said to have hurled their dead over the walls of Kaffa, infected bodies used as weapons. The Genoese, fleeing the city, brought the disease with them. As their ship sailed into Messina, the Sicilian port, the Black Death entered Europe. It spread like wildfire through Italy to France, Spain, and beyond. By 1348, the plague had reached England, and soon after, the farthest reaches of Scandinavia. Villages were erased from existence. Entire families perished within days, leaving homes abandoned, crops to rot, and towns deserted. Fear gripped the continent. Without an understanding of germs or infection, people turned to superstition. Some believed it was a divine punishment. Others turned to scapegoats, such as the Jewish communities, who were persecuted in horrific pogroms. As with any crisis, fear begets chaos. Yet even in the depths of the plague's destruction, change was brewing. Much like modern crises, from economic downturns to pandemics, adversity forced people to rethink the very structures of society. The plague was a destroyer, but also a catalyst. With nearly 1/3 of Europe's population wiped out, labor became scarce. Feudal lords, once able to control peasants through force and tradition, found themselves bargaining for labor. This imbalance of power began to unravel feudalism. Just as today, disruptions in industries lead to the reimagining of economic structures. Peasants were no longer bound to the land. Wages rose, and for the first time, many began to envision a life beyond subsistence. This was the beginning of the end of serfdom. Much like how new industries and innovations emerge in the aftermath of today's global disruptions, so too did new opportunities grow from the ashes of the Black Death. And just as we today question our governments, institutions, and leaders in times of turmoil, the people of medieval Europe began to scrutinize the church and state. How could these great institutions, which claimed divine favor, have allowed such suffering? These questions, these seeds of doubt, would eventually lead Europe out of the Dark Ages and into the Renaissance. Pause 3 seconds. So what can we learn from this chapter of history? The Black Death was a devastating event, a tidal wave of death and despair, but it was also a force for transformation. Just as modern events like pandemics or economic collapses force us to rethink our structures, the plague reshaped the very fabric of Europe. It reminds us that in times of darkness, there are often seeds of growth beneath the surface. In both the Dark Ages and today, resilience and adaptation are the true marks of progress. From the Mongol steppes to the streets of Florence, and from the isolated villages of medieval England to the bustling cities of today, we are all connected by the threads of history. The lesson of the Black Death is that even in the most dire of circumstances, humanity finds a way to endure, to innovate, and to rise again.